Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to thank Tina and the Clavin family for allowing me to speak today. It's one of the honors of my life. When we were students at Our Lady of Solace, Scott and I used to get out of class 15 minutes early to lower and fold the American flag that hung out front every day. It was pretty sweet, and I'm sure he finagled that deal for us. I couldn't manage that at that age. At the same time, he successfully avoided being enlisted as an altar boy by the nuns at Solace. Also a very impressive achievement. Those are my first indications that Scott had a talent for working a system for his and his friends' benefit. Little did I know what the future held. I drove Scott's jet ski into a police boat one spring break in Florida long ago, and it was all my fault. It left a good-sized gouge in the jet ski fiberglass, and it was he, not I, that got an angry lecture from the officer while we were treading water. I never heard what the cost of the repair was, nor did Scott ever bring it up to me, other than as one of many, many old stories. He never batted an eye, never showed the slightest annoyance with me about the mishap. I was very lucky that he wasn't really angry with me, but that was Scott. I think he saw it at the time as just a small temporary obstacle to be overcome on our larger goal of enjoying ourselves no matter what. That was the theme we'd see repeated for years. I've known Scott for 44 years, along with the rest of our close friends from the east side of Syracuse neighborhood where we grew up. I was 12 years old when we met. Wrapping your mind around a friendship that long and impactful is a challenge. But I owe it to Scott to get it on record, so here goes. The nature of our relationship was probably typical of a lot of kids that age, and over the decades, it never really wavered from that. We were not the kind of friends that needed to lean on each other for a lot of advice or to be cheered up when we were down. We didn't come to each other with a bunch of personal problems to be solved. Our friendship was largely based on simply having fun, finding a good time, and enjoying hanging out with each other. And somehow we were able to do that almost all the time, and it never got old, ever, to the very end. That might sound like a shallow basis for a lifelong friendship, but it was anything but. I was so fortunate to have a buddy to share adolescence with. That time when everything felt more intense. The stakes seemed so high, and the memories now so vivid. High school and beyond was strange, exciting, and a little scary. Scott and I spent a lot of time together in those 13 years after we met, and we shared a lot of adventures along the way. Much of it was foolish and irresponsible, as well as just good, clean fun. I first met him when I did not know who I myself was, but that span of years with him led me into the person I became, and I think he would have said the same. Looking back, the memories are both hazy and very clear. Playing in television at his house every day for 2 weeks straight. Warm summer days, riding bikes to Green Lakes along the towpath with beers in our backpacks. Freezing cold football games when we played freshman and JV for Grimes. All the rides home after practice in my dad's Rabbit listening to NPR. Hours of hacky sack and pitch in the senior lounge. Alternating who would actually complete the homework assignment in Afro-Asian studies so the other could copy it. Aimlessly walking the east side streets for hours in sub-10-degree temperatures on a January night. Hanging out at the Holiday Bowl and the drive-in on Erie Boulevard. Countless nights partying on Marshall Street. The endless absurd banter while working at Loyola Hall. Scott, Pete, and I pushing Jutton's stalled Maverick up Genesee Street after an all-nighter while the sun was coming up. Getting Scott's letters during my freshman year at college, I can still feel the impressions from his pen on the paper. He had a firm grip while he was writing. Parties in the plaza, road trips to the Jersey Shore, Potsdam, Boston, and Charleston Lake. And lying out on the dock there watching the northern lights sparkle. Scott stopping by my house so I could tie his tie for him, literally while he was on his way to a job interview. This happened more than once. All the annual snow bowls and turkey bowls, all his house parties, including that sketchy house on Niven Street. That ridiculous never-ending debate we had about squeezing the plastic soda bottles to keep them fizzy. That Florida reunion when he had the overhead display at the Tampa airport announce our arrival like we were an Amway convention. Kelly and I sitting with Tina, Scott, and their dogs at our campsite while sipping cocktails that Scott pre-mixed and brought in his cooler. And we'll never forget all the bachelor parties where Scott happily supplied the bowling ball, lock, and chain. I could go on, but you get the idea. At its peak, we knew that we had it pretty good, and that wouldn't last forever, nor should it. Honestly, we did actually talk about how fun those years had been and while we were living them, that it was pretty special and that it was not likely to be repeated again. We had to grow up after all. But I think we both later in life came to understand and value the bond we forged. I know I did. I realized how rare that kind of friendship is and how lucky I was. As adults, our communication slowed down and we would not have contact for months at a time. But Scott deserves all the credit and thanks for his relentless efforts to organize regular reunions of our old gang in Florida. Scott solely made that happen so many times, and I know our friends would not be nearly as close now if not for all of his work and planning. He truly went above and beyond. All of us owe him a huge debt for that. We also owe him a debt for being a most inspiring role model and how he faced his illness with grace, courage, faith, and humor. I ask all of his friends and family here, did he ever really let it show until the very end? Did he not always put on the same face, eager to see us, have some beers and a great meal, laughing it up like always? I know his faith gave him that strength, as well as Tina. Her presence in his life was a blessing to Scott and to all of us. Thank you for everything, Tina. I've heard it said that when someone close to us passes, we mourn them, but we are actually mourning that part of ourselves that is also gone. That sounds a little selfish, but I readily admit that I mourn that part of me that Scott added to my life, the love and companionship of the best friend. I am mourning all the adventures and future stories that won't be shared and retold endlessly. I'm mourning his generosity, his corny sense of humor, his love of life, his openness, friendliness, and complete lack of affect. Because with Scott, what you saw is always what you got. I think we are all blessed, especially myself and our Eastside friends, to have that gift of all that shared history and experience of life with Scott. It's a gift to be treasured and protected. We all owe it to him to always celebrate his memory and never forget his huge contribution to our lives. They broke the mold with Scott. He was one of a kind, a truly unique soul. He will be missed. I know that when we're all together again, he'll be making a pizza, enjoying a cold cocktail, and laughing about something, all at the same time. We'll be sure to have a blast, remember and laugh about the old times, and say they were all, in Scott's immortal words, savage. Thanks.